And here we are, episode 11.
Woohoo!
Spotlight. How exciting.
Big time. I am too.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you to this. It's pre-recorded. We need to, lay that out there in the up front, so that we're not being deceitful. No, there's so many deceitful.
But we are recording in front of a live studio audience, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The pugs are right over there.
One take. We're not going. No edits. We're going to do this in one pass here.
Awesome. So when you're watching this, please let us know where you're watching from. Make a comment in our little comment section. Let us know where you are. Obviously it's going to be the replay. I don't have to say that. And if you have questions that while listening to this, that you want to ask Brian, myself, or Will, our guest, please put them in there and we'll make sure that he gets to them and you can get answers to them.
Yeah. I mean, should we introduce ourselves or what?
I'm Kellen and
she's the author of, we have cred.
We have street cred.
We're both authors who love helping other authors. And
exactly.
We also love interviewing authors. So that's why we came
and
up
our
with this
interviews help you because you learn something we've learned some really valuable lessons from our past interviews. It's so exciting. And I'm even more excited to continue our British invasion with our guest, Will Polston. He's an amazing guy. I met him when I was in London. He was a speaker at an event that I was at. And he is, I'm going to just read it here. He's one of the UK's leading business strategists and performance coaches. He works with ambitious people, rapidly transforming their lives by empowering them to master their mindset, productivity, and efficiency. That's a mouthful.
Oh, I know. And all stuff that you and I need. So, we're going to get some more free coaching today.
More free coaching for us. Yay. So let's bring him on and let's get this party started.
Hello. Hi, guys.
Welcome, you so
Will.
much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here and looking forward to our conversation, and hope everybody listening or watching wherever they are in the world, whatever date they're watching, they get to enjoy eavesdropping. So
yes,
it'll be cool.
They'll be eavesdropping on our conversation. Yeah, I love that. So we're going to be talking today about your newest book, North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset and Live the Life You Love. I know we were talking before the show. This book looks small, okay? But it packs a wallop. It's got so much great information in here. We probably won't have time to go through everything. So I just have some questions that I thought of, but if there's something, Will, that you would like to, talk about that's important to you, please feel free to jump in at any time. So in the beginning of the book, you talk about watching your father work. And I'm thinking that is kind of the why that you wrote this particular book and chose the career that you have.
Yes is the short answer, but it kind of expands out from that. So for everybody that's not read the book yet, I grew up with a belief that money equaled happiness, and I went on a tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could. I become very good at that, and kind of the slightly extended version is that my dad hated his job. He used to leave the house at 5 a.m, get home at 8 o'clock at night. It'd bring the stress and the frustration of work home with him. I don't know if anybody listening to this or you guys can relate to this, is when you know people, they're so stressed, they've got so much tension, you can feel it, you can physically feel it. And that was kind of what it was like. And then one day I came home from school and my dad had quit his job to set up a business with one of my uncles. I've got two very wealthy uncles. One's a billionaire, the other one's a multimillionaire. And Dad always used to say they just got lucky. That was his excuse. They just got lucky. And my dad had quit his job to set up a business with one of my uncles. But fast forward a few months, that business never even got started, and my dad fell into a depression, or what we would deem now as kind of a depression. Looking back on it, slept in a separate room to my mum, curtains shut all day, didn't leave the house, all that stereotypical stuff. And I just remember connecting the dots. I went, Uncle Mark, billionaire, he's really happy. Uncle Steve, multimillionaire, he's really happy. Dad, when he worked in London, all right, he was stressed and frustrated, but he's happier, or was happier then than he is now, where he he kind of isn't working, doesn't have any money. So at kind of 11, 12 years old, I just made that connection and thought, well, money equals happiness. So I went on that tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could. So yeah, that's kind of the thing that I observed back then.
And then when was the transformation to today?
Yeah, so that
huge. It's huge.
Yeah, that carried on for some years. And what was interesting was that when I was about 18, I stumbled across personal development. And the more personal development I did, the more money I made. I was like, this stuff's great. I kept doing more and more personal development. And then one day I went to an event with sort of a personal development sort of legend, if you like, Tony Robbins, who many people would have heard of and know of. And it was 10 years ago this year that I had what I call my lightning moment, and bam, it just hit me. I cried my eyes out for about 15 minutes because in that moment I realized my real driver was nothing to do with money. It had never really been about money. What it was really about was my dad and my perception that he hadn't achieved his full potential and the impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family and a whole host of other people. And I vowed in that moment, I don't want anyone else to go through the suffering that he went through and we went through as a result of them not achieving their full potential. So from that moment on, I've just been obsessed with anything to do with human awareness, human potential, and human behavior.
That's amazing. So, like in your book, these are certain things that popped out for me. The 4 types of ambitious people. I love that you've actually defined it, because we all think ambitious people. We all have our little memory ideas of what that is. But I like that you've honed it down into 4 different types: the lost, the frustrated, the procrastinators, and the successful. So how did you come down to those four ideas?
I just saw it on a post-it note one day. No, I'm kidding. To date, I've worked with about 2,000 business owners and entrepreneurs. I've done about 6,000 hours of one-on-one coaching, let alone the other workshops and speaking and whatnot. And what I've been obsessed with for years is patterns. What are the patterns of behavior that I see? Because yes, every single one of us is completely unique, and we're as unique as the fingerprint that's on our finger that every single one of us have got that's our own. But we're not that unique. Actually, there's patterns of behavior that I've seen over and over and over again, and I basically whittled it down, and I was just realizing that look, there's a bunch of people that are really ambitious, but they're lost, and what they're lacking is clarity. So these are the people that they've got drive and they've got goals, but they either haven't divined what that goal is yet, or they've once had goals and now they've no longer got goals. So that was kind of the first group. The second group of people were the frustrated. So these are people that have got goals. They're really clear on what they are, but the things that they're doing aren't getting them really closer to that. So hence the frustration. They're like a hamster on a hamster wheel. They're working really hard. They're running really fast, but they're not actually going anywhere. Then there was the people that kind of have goals, but just aren't taking the action. So they're kind of not like the frustrated. The frustrated taking loads of action, but they're kind of the busy fools, if you like. Whereas the procrastinators, they know what they need to do. They're just not doing it. And then for me, there was the successful. So my definition of success is people being, doing, and having what they desire. And there was those people. And what I realized was that the people that that I deemed to be successful and were being, doing, and having what they wanted, they had absolute clarity. So not only did they know where they wanted to go, they knew what the plan was. They were taking what I call intelligent action. So it wasn't action for action's sake. So where they're frustrated, they're taking loads of action, but it's not the smartest of action. So they were taking intelligent action, and they had some degree of accountability, whether it was their own accountability, so they were keeping themselves accountable, or they had somebody to keep them to account. And that was what I was witnessing. Those people were getting the results, and kind of the way my brain works is I like to deconstruct things and turn them into a science. So how can I take anybody and get them a result that they want to get? And that's where I've learned over the years a whole range of different modalities, and I take all these different concepts and I kind of distill them down to help people get those results.
And those are your accountability. That's the framework that you built for your accountability, your active accountability. So I was just going to bring that up. I'm like, oh, he just talked about all of them. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Am I still going, Brian?
You're still in. You're still in.
No, there's just so much.
I know. I mean, I want to hear what your questions are first.
I'll do my last one and then I'll let you talk for a little bit.
All
so
right, cool.
I love when you talk about Aristotle. Is it Aristotle? When you talk about working from the back, from the end.
Yeah.
That was big for me.
Yeah. So that's kind of another thing. So one of the things I'm quite obsessive with, and Kellen, I know you were saying that you read a book a week and you're powering through, and I'm the same. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm constantly trying to learn things, and one of the things that I've done for years is I've kind of looked at the people that are successful, quote unquote, and I've gone, well, what do they do? And one day it dawned on me that it isn't actually what people always do; it's what they think. And that's why now I'm a big believer, if you think different, you act different. If you act different, you get different results, because it all really starts with how you think. And when I was studying lots of great leaders, they were all talking about the end in some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So Aristotle spoke about the telos, the Stoics spoke about the logos, right. Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, spoke about the chief aim. Robert Greene talks about beginning with the end in mind. Stephen Covey talks about beginning with the end in mind. Robert Greene talks about planning to the end. They've all spoken about it in some degree or another. And then what they've done from that is kind of worked backwards. So that was the kind of viewpoint that I had is, well, look, let's begin with the end in mind and work back, because that's far more effective, because then we can, if we know where we want to go, we reverse engineer from that. It can be far more effective than kind of having to zigzag off left, right, and center to left and right, because it's just going to take a lot longer to achieve an outcome, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Nope, I agree.
So, Will, I have a couple questions, and I dig into the book mindset overall, like how it fits into your business. I know, Kellen, I love reading books. I love the content as well, but I love to study how it's part of your overall business. So I was wondering what came first, this coaching model or the book? Did you have one before the other?
Yeah, it was coaching came first, then the book. And it's really interesting because I suppose as an entrepreneur, there's a little bit of us that are all slightly rebellious. We don't want to stick to the status quo. We kind of want to go against the grain a little bit, and that plays out a lot for me in my life. And what a lot of people were saying was, well, if you want to write a book, you need a model. You need a model. You need to do this, and this. And I really struggle with the model, because although I use a framework, so absolute clarity, intelligent action, and active accountability, I don't want to pigeonhole myself into having to use the same model all the time. So I'm like, what if it evolves? What if it develops, et cetera, et cetera? Whereas the beauty of a framework is I can bring lots of different concepts in and I can mold them to that. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was take what I felt were the most powerful concepts that really packed the biggest punch, and I appreciate you kind of saying that the book's small, but it kind of it lands in that respect, Kellen. But I think for me, that was something that I was trying to do, is distill down. Like that book could have easily been 3 times the size, but the hardest part was taking it and refining it and trying to say the same thing as clearly and as succinctly as possible. And that was hard. That was one of the hardest parts of writing the book, is making sure that I said enough so that it had an impact, but without saying too much that it become fluff.
No, I think that's a wonderful strategy. I often talk to aspiring authors, and one of the things I think is, people don't have the bandwidth to read a book that's like this wide anymore. So in a Facebook, LinkedIn post, social media culture, people have about this much attention span anyway. So yeah, I think, you're meeting the market where it needs to be as well. So, I think that's huge asset for you, because also, I think you talked about procrastinating, and I think, your book in its own right could be a success, that somebody finishes your book. Like a lot of people don't finish books even. So, you're already giving somebody a success by giving them a book that they can finish, and is a good model. So,
Right.
How does your book fit into your like personal branding and things like that?
In terms of how do we use it as a tool for the business, if you like, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So this was something that was really, really important for me, in the sense of there's a lot of people. I don't know what it's like in the States, but over here in the UK, there's a lot of people that have now started using their book as a fancy business card. I'm an author. It's a door opener. But actually, when you open the book and you go through it, it actually has very little substance. And there's actually a guy over here in the UK, just to demonstrate this point. He got a book published on Amazon that was I don't know, whatever it was, 150-page book that had one word in it. It was just ridiculous because he just wanted to demonstrate the point that a lot of people and it was done to kind of take the mickey, but it was done to just demonstrate this point of there's a lot of people, just because they say they're an author, it doesn't mean they've actually got any substance. So the thing that was really important for me was that I didn't want people to have to read my book and then sign up for a program of mine, for them to truly get the juice, if you like. So I've done my absolute best to try and provide the new ways of thinking, but also the really practical exercises for people to take that book. And even if they never did anything with us, but they took that book and they read it from cover to cover and they did the actions, that it had an ability to truly help them master their mindset and live a life they love. And that was something that was really important to me. So kind of how does that fit in? I mean, for me, that's embodying one of the core principles and values of my business, which is we get results. So the fact that we've got this tool that someone can buy on Amazon and it can, if used, help them get a result is something that's really key for me.
Yeah, I think that's great. Kellen and I both have a favorite author, Jeffrey Gitomer, and he always says value first is so important. I think, that speaks highly of you and your organization, that you're saying, hey, we're going to put it all out there first. And the truth is, a lot of people can't administer it on their own anyway. So they're going to probably read it. They're like, hey, it's got some great chops here. And Will, I need your help. So I think that's ideally a good model for that. Did you have any surprises when you set out to write the book? Like the process of writing a book?
Yeah. So I would highly recommend people don't do what I did. So what I did. So I like to think of myself as efficient, right? And efficient is a very fancy word for saying I like to take shortcuts. And the shortcut that I tried to take, so I'd been running a 2-day workshop that I've been running, for pretty much 8 years now. And that's now got a 300-page workbook that people work through. And people spend 20 hours with me across 2 days and we go through this event. So I thought, I've got like kind of 60% of it from the workbook. So I took the workbook and then I transcribed a whole bunch of podcasts that I'd done over the years. And I was trying to create this product by bringing all these things together, because I thought that would be the quickest way of doing it. And it absolutely wasn't. What I would have been better off doing would have been starting with a completely blank sheet, which I did do the framework, the skeleton. So I did the chapters and I did the kind of the subheadings, if you like, and work through that. But then to build the content, I tried to do that. And because of the amount of editing, and this is even before the editor had got it, that I had to do and change things, and there was stuff that was written in the first person, then the third. It was just an absolute nightmare. It would have been so much easier for me to have done that. So yeah, that was the bit that was hard. But the thing that I realized that I made a mistake that may be useful for people that are listening to this now is two things. One is know what is the book solving. So it's no different to a business, a podcast, whatever. Like, really, who are you helping? What pain is it taking them out of, or what solution are you helping them get? So that was kind of something that was important. And also the other thing that I didn't give enough credit to was how good the editors would be. So for me, it was like pulling teeth trying to edit this, whereas what I should have done sooner, in my opinion, was kind of get the first draft done. And I probably revised it 3 or 4 times more than I needed to. I could have just sent it to them and then got it back. But for some reason, I don't know whether it's the perfectionism in me or whatever, or just the lack of realizing that actually these guys are professionals, they can do it better than me, would have been something that I would have done sooner.
No,
that was the thing that I was going to bring up too, is editing is much more important than anybody ever realizes. So did you have one set of eyes on it? How many, like, did you have multiple editors? How did your process work?
There would have been, I can't remember. So the publisher we used, I think there would have been at least 4 different lots of people. I mean, even things like they had 2 different content. I had original editor, then I had 2 other editors review it. Then they had a separate editor, because the way that they did it was the editor that edited the content first. Then there was another 2 people that edited the content, but then there was another person whose job was purely to edit typos. So the same person editing the content wasn't looking for the typos, because then it's like anything in life, you get what you look for, right? So if you're looking for typos, you're not looking for the content to be right, and you can't look for both things at the same time. So yeah, that was a kind of process that I handed over. But I think that it would have been a better experience for me if I had have done that sooner, I think. Yeah, so that was definitely a factor.
No, I think definitely a good point there. There are different types of editors out there, and not yet maybe somebody who's going to self-publish a book, maybe they don't have a budget to hire 2 or 3 different types of editors, but I think it's good to know that there are many types of editors out there, and to be able to choose somebody that can actually give you some content advice, and somebody that's going to pick up all the double spaces after periods and the wrong word or homophones, things like that. And so I think those are good insights for a new author to know about that.
Yeah, and the thing that I found was that because I'd written it, or I'd said it, or however it ended up on that document, the more that I read it, the less I saw, because I'd become blind to things.
Oh my gosh!
There was the stuff that I've just gone over it and over and over it, and to the point where I become completely blind to it. So that's why it's so important to get those different opinions.
Well, that's because you know what it's supposed to say, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah, exactly. Well, this is it. Even
I know what I'm
thinking. Really interesting. So I've never said this publicly, so this is going to be a first that you're getting on the
all right.
Scoop.
Scoop.
When I read the audiobook 3 months after the book was released, I found a load of things that were wrong. So we had to. there was things, because when I then read it back, that was because although they gave me the book and I had to read it, and it was all good, but I'm skim reading it. Whereas when I'm having to read it word for word, there was still mistakes in it that I only realized when I read the audiobook, because I didn't have the patience to read it out loud. One of the tips that I got taught years ago with emails, actually, so with email marketing, was an email marketing guy said to me, if you're ever going to send an email, before you hit send, read it out loud. Don't read it back in your head, read it out loud, because there are so many things that you don't see when you read it in your head, because exactly as Kellen and you know what it's supposed to say, so you don't. It's only until you read it out loud, and I definitely found that out when I did the audiobook.
I love it. I can totally see it.
Anybody's got a first edition.
I can totally see it.
You just humanized yourself. You just humanized yourself.
Yeah.
No, and I can see it too. I mean, you got your finished book here, and you're like, oh, how did we miss this?
Yeah.
I've done the same thing after reading a book afterwards, and you're just like, what? What did I write here? That's a mess. Yeah. That's an excellent point. Love that one. How has it affected? I see you do speaking as well. Does it get you more speaking gigs, or how does it interface with that?
Yeah, it has done. I mean, obviously, it's still relatively new in terms of it's a couple of months old at this point. The thing that I've found, and this is what somebody else said to me actually, is that Will, so two things. I want to backtrack slightly. So on my podcast, I interviewed, so you may have heard of the book Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul, Mark Victor Hansen. And I interviewed Mark Victor Hansen on, so it's Mark Victor Hansen and I want to credit him because I've got it up there, Jack Canfield, right? Jack Canfield. And I interviewed Mark Victor Hansen on my podcast, and what was amazing, so he was saying, we sold 500 million copies, and at that point, it just dawned on me, I was like, wow, they've sold 500 million copies, but 25 years after the book came out, Mark Victor Hansen was still doing podcasts about the book. And something that somebody told me was, Will, there's one thing that's creating the book, but the second thing is marketing it, because you could have the best book in the world, but if nobody's reading it, then like, what's the point? And I think it's so true. So the way it was described, which I completely agree with, is that writing a book is like getting to the last 100 meters of a finish line, which is when it's going to be published, only to get to the finish line and realize you've got another marathon to run, which is the kind of the marketing of it to make sure it gets in the hands of people. But that, don't get me wrong, it's fun because I get to have great conversations like these, and that's really cool. But I think that's a very real thing as well, is that right, you can write a book and it can sit on the shelf for you and it's great. It's kind of an ego thing. Or if you've created a book that you think can help people and entertain people and educate people, whatever it may be, then you want to make sure it gets out into as many hands as possible. So that for me is something that's important to acknowledge as well. And I think it's important for people to understand that up front, because if they think, right, I'm going to get it published, and even if I get it published by a traditional publisher, they are expecting you to do the legwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're paying you to do some work. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's key. But in terms of opening doors, yeah, look, it's got me to have conversations with people that I wouldn't have had before. It's got me to, I think the biggest thing for me as well is that obviously we've got services that we support people with, and right as you say, Brian, it enables people to go through and go, wow, this is really good, but I could do with some help getting this done faster. And what it does is if people sit down and read the book, I don't know, it might take them 5 hours or whatever, 6 hours. Well, that's 6 hours they've spent with me, kind of intimately, if you like, with me in their head without me having to be there. So I've got kind of an asset that's constantly out there working, whether they're listening to it, whether they're reading it, they're spending time with me, getting to know the way that I work. And I think that's great as well. So,
well, I always say, Will, it's very intimate, because how else do you get your business card on somebody's nightstand? I mean, people take your book to bed with them. So, I mean, you're definitely getting that intimate conversation with somebody. So, love it.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn, Kellen.
Okay.
You're tagging Kellen in.
I'm like, this is the most I've ever let him talk. So back to your book, your exercises. I love that you have actual exercises in there. And the one that intrigued me the most was 5, when you talk about the happiness monitor, because everybody has these templates of, this is how you can succeed. These are your the formula for success, but not many people put a happiness there's very interesting components here that are directly related to your success. And I love that you've listed them right here. Mm-hmm. So do you want to talk about how you came up with these different, or why you called it the happiness monitor?
Yeah. So I want to help people live a life they love. And if you were to ask most people, what do they want in life? Most people are going to say to be happy. So it's kind of designed to work in the way that we want it to work, which is to get people to acknowledge where they're at. Now, if you think of a sat nav, right? So a sat nav, you put it in your car, you want to get from A to B. Right. The very first thing when you turn that sat nav on, even before you've put in the zip code of where you want to go to, before you've done anything, as soon as you turn it on, that sat nav works out where you are. And so many people, they get so obsessed with working out, right, I want to go here. They do goal setting. They do all of this thing. But what they fail to do is actually work out where they are. Now, if you don't know where you are, like using the sat-nav example, if you didn't get clear on where you are, it's never going to know which route is best to take you. So I could have 2 different people that have exactly the same goal, but the route that I'm going to take to get them there is going to be different based on where they're starting. Yeah. So I think you mentioned, Kellen, when you're in Georgia, but Brian, you're in
Ohio, Cincinnati.
Now, if we said, right, we want to get you both to get to New York, the destination's the same, but you're going to have to take two very different routes to get there.
Right.
And it's no different. So based on where people start is what's going to determine the strategy of what we prioritize and what we're going to double down on. So when we're looking at things like people want to improve their life, and but they're really struggling with, because they haven't got clarity of goals, or so that's one of the areas that we look at. So you've got things like clarity of goals, your love life, so in terms of your relationship with others, like with another or with yourself, time management, your career, health, fitness, weight, etc. These are all things that we can check in with, and we can go, right, what do we need to focus on? Because I'm a big believer that typically the thing you've scored lowest in will have the biggest overall impact if we deal with that first. So it helps us work out what we need to prioritize.
How about you're working with a client, they've defined happiness, but by the time you're almost through with them, they've realized their definition was wrong. So you help, so you like what you do is you help people define their true happiness so that they can get to New York.
Yeah. So the whole concept of North Star thinking is about, and it comes back to a famous story you've probably heard of. It involves a baby born in December in a stable a couple of thousand years ago. And there were three men, supposedly wise, all carrying presents. Now, these three men, they found their goal. They achieved their goal of finding the baby, and they used the North Star to guide them, but they never actually went to the North Star, or at least in the story, that's what happened. And the whole idea of North Star is the same principle. I believe in having a goal in life that's so big that you can detach from the outcome and you can focus on the process instead. Because if we get our fulfillment every day from the process, then there's an abundance of fulfillment that we can feel. And that's what I think it's really about. So a lot of people use happiness and they say, I want to be happy. When I drill into people what happy really is for them, we get down to a few labels. But I have a saying, which is happiness is equal to or greater than expectations, and most expectations aren't communicated, whether that's communicated to themselves or communicated to others. So when people get really clear on like, what is it I actually want? What do I want to be, do, and have? Then we can work from that place. And that's really what a North Star is. So North Star is really a mission in life that's the equivalent of trying to empty the sea with a spoon, something that you can work on for every day of your life, knowing you're never actually going to achieve it. But every single day you're working towards it, you're getting more and more fulfilled as you're working towards it.
So do you think that limiting beliefs are the biggest thing that hold people back?
I think they're a huge factor, without a doubt. Yeah, I think they're a huge factor. I think that there's potentially sometimes other factors, which is why I normally start with clarity. But for a lot of people, yeah, it can be their limiting beliefs, their perspective on something that's causing a challenge for them in one way or another. And ultimately, if you don't like something, you change it, and if you can't change it, you change the way you think about it. So. I would say so in almost all instances.
I think you gave the best example with the elephant story.
Do
you want to share that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great analogy.
So in Thailand, the way that they train elephants is that when they're young and they're full of energy and they're enthusiastic and they're running all over the place, they tie their leg with a bit of rope to something. It might be a tree or a kind of a pin in the ground or whatever it might be. And this highly energetic elephant kind of runs everywhere and they can't break the rope. And then as that elephant grows older, it just gives up trying. So even though when it gets big and it's a fully grown elephant, it could literally pull that tree down that it's tied to, it doesn't even try because it's got the memories of when it was a younger elephant and it tried all the time and it didn't work. And that's what happens in life. So many times we find ourselves not attempting things because of past beliefs, something that happened once upon a time that doesn't happen again in the future. And I'll share a kind of real personal example of this is that many years ago, I went through some financial challenge, and some of my credit scores got affected badly and whatever. And I tried to get a loan for something at the time. I can't remember what it was for, and I got declined. So for years, I just thought, well, I can't borrow money. It's just not possible. Until one day I tried again, and I was like, of course, I just haven't tried. I just haven't actually attempted it. I'd been that baby elephant, and because I got rejected once. So. And those beliefs aren't necessarily always our own beliefs. They can be other people's beliefs that have been injected or projected onto us. And when we actually drill into the why, that's why I'm kind of obsessed with, like I said earlier, patterns and the why. Why do people do things? And quite often people have just become accustomed to doing things because, and that's it. We do it because they don't actually know. It's always been done that way. It's always been like this. Yeah, but have you attempted testing it? Have you tried something different? Well, no, because we always do it that way. Well, what would happen if you did? I don't know. Well, let's find out. And then all of a sudden they have these breakthroughs.
I love
Brian,
how you said that. I love the because I'm sitting there waiting for you to give me something after it. Like I'm intently like, because, and then I'm like, well, no, he's like, literally, there's nothing on the other side of it. He totally made the point on that. So
we've had so many authors that we've interviewed have said the same thing. Like a 5th grade teacher said this to them, so they never did this. Or, there's so many people that have that one person said something that just crushed their dreams. And it fascinates me from a psychological point of how we can let that happen.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, and it's quite apt given I'm on a podcast interview talking about books. Anybody that we deem to be an authority is the author of our life. Yeah, or has an ability to be the author of our life. Because the people that we look down upon, I don't want to do what they're going to say, but if we look up to somebody and you take the word authority, it's literally got the word author in it. So if we deem to, that's what we really want. We want to keep a check of who are the people that we're putting on a pedestal, because if we put them on a pedestal for too long, then potentially we're living their values and what they deem to be important, not our own.
Exactly.
That's deep. That's good.
Yeah.
No, I hadn't thought of it that way, and I love your juxtaposition of that, that somebody is actually the authority in your life, and that if you're not paying attention to that, you definitely have somebody directing where you're headed, and they may not. If you make an unconscious decision for that, you really could end up in the wrong place pretty quickly. So
yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people step back and recognize who they're allowing into their life to be authorities. I know I haven't always made those choices. That's excellent.
Yeah.
We, like Kellen and I said, we do this so that we don't have to pay you, Will. I mean, this is this is free coaching for us. We actually have built up a tab of about $20,000 at this point from our podcast.
I mean, the whole thing, I think the beauty of your book, and I've written all over it, so I'm sorry, but I guess that's okay. When I was little, they say don't write in your books.
Yeah.
And I've got highlights, I got little tabs, I got everything all over it. But the thing about your book is it's concise but packed, chock full, but it still leaves you wanting more, because it does. I think it gives you like this little groundwork path, but they still need you to get to that finish line. And that's what I love about it, because I think the book personally leaves you wanting more. And was that your intent?
No, I tried to empty the tank. I mean, there is something that I've done, and you may have seen this or may not, but something that I've done, which is kind of a gift to everybody that's got the book, is that there's a web link, which I'm not going to tell people, because if they get the book, they can find out what it is. There's a web link in the back of the book where you can go and download like an 80-page PDF resource that gives them additional tools and techniques and kind of as a whole workbook that people can go through to refine that. So and there's no cost to that.
You're a giver.
That's free to download. So if people want that, I mean, I'm glad that you're saying it leaves people wanting more, but I kind of wanted to empty the tank and give people everything, because there's nothing that I've not said in that book that I wouldn't say. It's not like I've held back the real gems. You've got to come and work with me to get the real gems. I mean, yeah, look, we can help you.
Well, no, I think they get with you accountability, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I actually think that's a secret sauce. I think that's the secret sauce in life, is so many people want to hold back the good stuff and attract people. And really, when you go all in is when you actually get people who want more, because you showed up with everything. If you don't do that, then they're like, well, he's just like everybody else, So I love that.
I know we're running close on time, but we cannot forget my favorite chapter and my whole life's work, an attitude of gratitude. I mean, I think a lot of people, they miss this step in a lot of parts of their lives. And the one thing that stuck out with me with that was you can't, where did I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess up. It's impossible to feel fear and gratitude at the same time. I mean, talk about a saying. I mean, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. I think perspective, which so many of us have life events. So one of the quotes, I talk about it in the book, or one of the formulas is E plus R equals O. So event add response equals outcome. And every single day we have stuff. Stuff that happens in our life. We've got stuff from the past, but how we choose to think about what's happened will determine whether we're going to be the victor or the victim. And I think that when we take this viewpoint of we are 100% responsible for everything that happens in our life, and a lot of people go, well, but it's not my fault. I go, yeah, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility, because your ability to respond and choosing to have an attitude of gratitude is your response. I had a situation not so long ago where I was driving down the road. I was on a dual carriageway, driving at, 70 odd miles an hour. And all of a sudden another car pulled out. And I know there's a lot of people that would have gone into full road rage. There would have been hand signals given. There would have been verbal abuse. There would have been all these things. But I for a split second, that was my reaction. But the difference between my reaction and my response is my response I can override. And my response instantly was, I'm so grateful I was paying attention. Yeah, because if I wasn't, if I was looking down at my phone or something and that would have happened, then I probably wouldn't be here today. I'm so grateful that I had the quick response to be able to move. I'm so grateful that he didn't pull out a second later. I'm so grateful. So instantly I kind of went into that default. And then it wasn't an issue for me. I could just get on the rest of my day, and I was going to get to where I was going to get to on time. Whereas other people, they would have let that bother them, and they would have stewed on that all day and maybe longer.
Totally. So do you have a gratitude journal? I do. Journal every day?
I've got a little black book, which I've got here. And for those that are watching, you can see this here. But yeah, I write out. So my kind of journaling process is I write what time I wake up. I write how I feel when I wake up, and any reason that I think I might feel that way. I don't know if the night before I'd had loads of sugar and I'm feeling like I'll make that because I'm interested in finding out the patterns. Then I write 10 things I'm grateful for using what I call the PEBEB process. So PEBEB's an acronym for people in the previous 24 hours. So people, experiences, belongings, expectations, and privileges that I'm grateful for. And the reason I do the last 24 hours is it forces me to focus and not say the same stuff every day. So what people am I grateful for? So tomorrow I'll be grateful for you guys because you had me on your show and you said experiences. So what experiences have I been able to have today? Well, I've had this great interview on the right spotlight, and that's been great. Belongings. What belongings of mine am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my blue snowball because it enabled me to be able to do this conversation. Hopefully people hear me a bit better. And then what expectations and privileges do I have? Well, one of my expectations that I'm really grateful for that's enabled me to converse with you guys 5,000 miles away or however many thousand miles away it is that the internet's working, because I didn't even comprehend today that the internet wouldn't work and this wouldn't be possible. So I'm grateful for that. And then a privilege of mine. Well, one of the things I'm really grateful for as a privilege is the ability to see, because the fact that I can see you guys, well, that's a privilege that some people don't have, so that's just a quick snippet of 5 things just based on something that's happened today by using people, experiences, belongings, expectations, and privileges that forces me to focus and find stuff. And the beauty of it is that every single day I can always find 10 things. No matter how mundane the day's been, I can always find 10 things by using that process.
Wow.
We can end it now. This was amazing. So wait, Brian, you have a question that I don't want to mess it up, but would you rather have 100 people read your book or sell 100 books? Or what was your question?
Yeah. So the question is, would you rather sell 1,000 books or have 1,000 people read your book?
1,000 people read it every day of the week. Yeah.
That's another consistent answer on this show.
Yeah.
So, we talked about what you we're trying to give authors little tips and stuff like that. Is there anything that you can offer, any kind of advice you can offer to somebody who's contemplating writing a book, partially through writing a book, any kind of words of wisdom that you can give them?
What words of wisdom would I give them? Can I say a few and just chuck a few in rather than pick one? Okay. So I'm going to say set a deadline, because otherwise it can drag out and drag out and drag out. So give yourself some sort of deadline of when you're going to get your first draft done by, and just get it over to an editor sooner rather than later once that's done. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, and this really held me back for a long time, is that, and it kind of links back to the deadline, is that if you're constantly learning, it will never be finished. I was finishing, I was doing the first draft, send that off to an editor. I was like, there's still something else I want to add in. Please, I want to add to, because I'm constantly learning. So that's why that deadline thing is really important. Do you know what? I'm going to say that as the one is have a deadline, and because I think that if you put that deadline in place, so much else can fall into place by having that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really kind of meaningful that other people wouldn't necessarily have thought of. But yeah, sometimes it is the basics, isn't it? We need to come back to the basics. So put a deadline in place, use the power of Parkinson's law, which is work expands until the time of which you give it, and get that in the that, because so many of us, there'll be people listening to this going, I've always wanted to do that one day. There is that cliche, isn't it? It can either be one day or day one. Right. What do you want it to be?
Excellent point. No, I love it.
Well, I don't know how to top that. I don't know how to thank you, Will. I mean, I know this was very difficult. You're very busy, and we appreciate any amount of minutes that you were willing to spend with us and to spend with our listeners. So I just wanted to thank you right now from the bottom of my heart and say thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Likewise, really appreciate it as well. And I will have to take your journaling model and share that we're grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
We're going to put a link in the comments so that they can order your book on Amazon. So if anyone's interested, hopefully we can get some more people this great book of knowledge that you have. Brian and I we're going to talk about what we feel our highlights of the show are. We're going to put you back in the green room, and we'll be there in a few seconds.
Over to you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Will.
Whoa.
I know. I mean, deep stuff.
So do you have a gratitude routine?
I'm actually reading a book called Holy Moments right now, and I've been kind of calling them holy moments personally. But it's stopping. I don't necessarily write them down all the time, but I usually stop a couple times a day and just remind myself of what's important to me, and it's usually always my wife and my daughter. And you and the wonderful people in my life. So
yeah, I do. I have Gratitude Monday. Every Monday I write a thank you note to somebody. I just realized I've been doing it for almost 21 years. So that's kind of cool. And then I have my gratitude journal that And what I like to write, my formula is I like to write today I'm grateful for, and then today I'm going to send gratitude to. So how I'm going to move my gratitude forward. So that's just my little ritual. But let's do our takeaways. There's so many, I'm not going to be able to do them all. Like I like that he is defining happiness, because you need to know what's going to make you happy before you can even be successful with being happy. Setting a deadline, huge. I mean, that's a big deal. And of course, my gratitude is my business, my life. And so the attitude of gratitude was really huge for me. And when he said authority is the author, that makes you step back and think, I never thought of it put that way. And I'm like, oh, that's so true, because we've all had somebody tell us we couldn't do something. And it took, something to make us get past that block. And then that goes back, and then that is, most authors have past beliefs, and, getting past those is obviously a big thing. And I know Will is good at helping people get through that. So here's his book, North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset. Like I said, it's packed. It's a small book, but it is so packed with wonderful information that you can use to, like, the minute you pick up the book. So I want to thank everybody for watching, right?
Yeah, thanks everybody. If you're on replay here, we'll be dropping some notes here, but let us know what you enjoyed about the podcast. If you're over here at our YouTube page, make sure you subscribe, which is the youtube.com/the-right-spotlight. So be sure to subscribe so that you can get updates of our next show. You can even sign up, tell your friends. The right time.
I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off today. Remember that Brian is the guy that'll get you through the finish line. If you're thinking about writing a book, you contact him. What, 90 days? Is that your
I mean, I think, I've worked with some people in about 90 days. Not every book's going to take 90 days, but it definitely, tying in with what Will said, is set a deadline, set a period of time so that you can, Parkinson's law, which is, the amount of time you allocate to it, will be the amount that you use. So we would figure out how best to do that. So 90 days. But Kellen also is an author, Wagmore, and with the holidays, this would be a great stocking stuffer. So
if you're a bug lover,
and she's got all kinds of other stuff too. So
I know I do. Just contact either of us if you want information on how to get your book finished, or how I can get you to the right media sources. Okay, next week we have Ashley Leeds. We're continuing our British invasion. He is a LinkedIn expert, and he'll probably play his guitar for us. And then we have Rex Sykes on the 9th. Life on Your Terms. This is a great book. I'm really looking forward to him. And that's as far as I have for our calendar right now. So
we're going to finalize out December, and we'll announce that next week. So
y'all have a great Thanksgiving, and tune in next week.
See you soon. Thanks, everybody.